Morning, all. All right, so we have 4 games today. Hockey's going to be on basically all day, so if you have the day off work, there you go. And if you're in Europe and you're like, is there anything early for us Europeans that might be up a little bit late? Kinda. It's not a playoff game, though, so if you want to watch Vancouver and Calgary, why? I do expect that to be my reaction to this game as well. But you know what? It's been fine. It was fun to watch the first one. We'll see if Calgary takes game two of a 3 game set that doesn't mean anything. And for the Canucks, of course, it's a matter of where they're going to finish in the standings. How high can they go? How low can they stay? Depends on which side of the fence you're on as a Canuck fan or hockey fan in general. So I don't expect fantastic hockey. I don't expect a lot of intensity in hitting, but scoring, probably, yeah, probably going to see some scoring. I'm kind of surprised Calgary isn't putting one of their young goaltenders in yet. So, Marchand started, 13 in a row, something like that. I'm surprised they haven't put in one of their young goaltenders just to see. Just throw them in. Throw them into an NHL game and just see what they can do. So yeah, for Calgary and Vancouver, that game's on early. It gets itself out of the way, so we get into the evening games. I'm not going to burn myself out before the evening games. So I'll be doing the treadmill thing I do every day, probably during the Vancouver Calgary game, and just save a majority of the attention and note taking for the 3 games that will start at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. The Islanders and the Penguins. The Islanders are up 1-0 in the series. Pittsburgh has to win tonight. There's no way around it. They cannot afford to be going to New York and playing the Islanders down 2-0. And again, if they lose this game tonight, that's where the narrative changes. You go from, hey, it's Crosby and they're contenders to, so they've lost 11 out of 12 now in their last 12 playoff games, playoff environment games, depending on what you consider the play-in round to be from last year. Either way, they don't have a great playoff record the last few years. And the only way that narrative changes is if they win tonight, because they've also lost 5 in a row in the playoffs against the New York Islanders, who swept them in 2019. So for the Islanders, it's a matter of you've got them down 1-0. If you really want to beat them, tonight's a good night to get it done. And Varlamov probably starts. I say that because it sounds like he's good to go. And Barry Trotz hasn't been shy about switching goaltenders. He has no problem. Playoffs, doesn't matter. He will switch goaltenders. So I would not be surprised if Varlamov's in. And as good as Sorokin was in the first game, and he was, I think Varlamov's the better of the 2 goalies, although it's close. And again, Islanders definitely have an ability to turn goaltenders around. And for Pittsburgh, we'll see how this goes. The Pittsburgh Penguins cannot afford to lose tonight. And that's that. There's no way around it. Also, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. So half an hour later, we get the Battle of Florida. Now, based on the view counts that I saw coming out of Game 1s, Pittsburgh and the Islanders didn't have anywhere near the interest level of most of the other series. So tonight I expect most to be watching Tampa Bay and Florida. And I can't argue with that. Tampa Bay and Florida has been the most entertaining series thus far. Although Washington and Boston, with that game last night, they're certainly trying. And the overtime games are, keeping the tension alive. Now, Tampa Bay and Florida didn't need overtime, but it kind of felt like an overtime game with so much action stuffed into that 60 minutes. Tampa Bay is up 1-0, so again, Florida, same position as Pittsburgh, cannot afford to lose at home tonight. You cannot afford to be going to Tampa and dealing with that energy in Tampa Bay and a team that won a cup last year, and their fans are going to be excited to watch them in the playoffs this year after not being able to watch them last year in the playoffs. Florida has to win tonight. Absolutely have to. And keep in mind, Sam Bennett is suspended for tonight's game based on the suspension he was given yesterday. So he misses the 1 game, and this is a big game. So more falls on Hornqvist, and more of the responsibility falls on the depth guys with Sam Bennett being out. But the good news is Florida was a pretty good team before Sam Bennett got there, so they should be able to absorb this loss pretty well. That being said, they have to figure out a way to stop Kucherov and Stamkos. That thing teams couldn't do last year in the playoffs. So best of luck to Florida. But yeah, Tampa Bay looks pretty darn impressive right now. And then at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, This game shouldn't have opposition to it in terms of viewing. However, there's 2 hours between these two start times. There's 2.5 between these two. So if this one doesn't go to overtime, then this game starts when this one ends. And that's kind of the reason it's scheduled like this. But we know there's going to be overtime because there's almost always overtime. So Minnesota and Vegas will be starting while the other two are likely still going. Minnesota up 1-0, thus the Creed magnet for Dean Evison reasons. And we'll see if Minnesota can get up 2-0. Vegas played well in the first game. Talbot was just better. Scoring chances, all that other stuff would tell you Vegas was the much better team in the first game. And as crazy as it sounds, Vegas just needs to play that game again. Because Talbot is not going to be a world beater in every single game. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I will say that I'm glad to have the Vancouver-Calgary game on the board because it means I could just wear a Vancouver jersey and say, it's, anticipating they probably win tonight, or maybe they don't, or it doesn't matter. So I'm not wearing a jersey of a team that's playing tonight in the playoff games. And there you go. So let me know in the comment section below who you believe wins these games tonight, including the one that doesn't have any bearing on anything. Brendan Gallagher, Carey Price. These are your two key players for the Montreal Canadiens if they're going to secure an upset victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Gallagher and Price both had a bit of a cup of coffee in the AHL last night. Gallagher throws up some hits and penalty minutes and shots. And for Price, his numbers, it's an AHL warm-up start. So I'm not overly concerned about numbers that a goaltender puts up in the AHL in a conditioning stint. The point is, of course, that they've both had game action, should be good to go for game one. So Montreal should be as healthy as they've been for a while when game one rolls around in a couple of days. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Montreal, because with Brendan Gallagher in the lineup, it does make a huge difference. Because when he's not in the lineup, they're not a very good team without Brendan Gallagher. And yeah, I mean, so that is something Mark Bergevin should look at in the offseason, is so what exactly caused this team to kind of fall apart when Gallagher wasn't in the lineup, and how do you insulate them so that one player falling out of the lineup doesn't have that much of an effect on the rest of the team? So it's likely it could be a depth issue, it could be a confidence issue, it could be various things, but general manager should be able to figure that out and fix it. And I don't say that as a way to besmirch the Habs. It's just when one player goes out and your team's record falls by that much, it has to make you wonder about some of the rest of the team. All right, so last night, Marchand made history, and so this is interesting that he scored the goal 39 seconds into overtime. It is the fastest overtime goal by a Boston Bruin. The previous fastest was in 1970, and it's by Bobby Orr, 40 seconds. So the ultimate trolling by Marchand to beat that record by 1 second. So now the fastest overtime goal in the history of the Bruins. CBC posted a video as well that showed the two side by side and showed the clock, and that was fun. It's 1 second is all it is. But yeah, so Marchand has the new record. Speaking of that series, the Washington Capitals, Kuznetsov and Samsonov are both headed to Boston with the team. I would think that they're going to play. I'd be surprised if they don't. Their game 3 status is uncertain, but they called up some guys. They've got some guys on the taxi squad that are not going to Boston. So while they're taking, I think it's 25 or 26 players to Boston. The fact Kuznetsov and Samsonov are there, and honestly, this series is tied. They need to win the games in Boston, and bringing Kuznetsov back into the lineup would be huge, especially if Lars Eller is out of the lineup, because Eller is more important to the Caps than I think people who may not watch the Caps regularly realize. And so you have to get Kuznetsov back into the lineup. You absolutely have to. Don Granato, who is right now the interim coach for the Buffalo Sabres, he may stick around. He may be the full-time coach for the Sabres. They're searching for a coach, but it may very well be that Granato's the best option. So at this stage, there's a good chance that he stays with the team. And I'll say 50-50 that he ends up being the head coach. I would be curious to see how many people are actually going for the coaching job in Buffalo, and whether or not the negative view of the team impacts something like that as well. We know that players, when they're unrestricted free agents, aren't necessarily going to look at Buffalo right now, and you have to wonder, like, when there's a coaching job available, if there was an opening in Boston, if Bruce Cassidy stepped down, I would think you're gonna get more applications for a job in Boston than you are in Buffalo. But would that be the case with Ottawa too? If DJ Smith steps aside, would you have more applicants for the job in Ottawa than Buffalo? And does that affect the quality you get as well? So when a team's going through what they've gone through, does this affect them going forward, that they kind of have to prove themselves without getting access to the same quality of candidates for jobs? Like, yeah. Anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And yes, there will be 4 different review videos tonight. There were 3 different review videos yesterday. And it's a busy first round, but it's been really fun so far. The hockey has been really excellent. So looking forward to watching more of that, and then sharing my notes and review with you guys after. The growth on the channel has been absolutely startling over the last week, because I haven't seen this like a growth spurt like this on the channel, and it's got to be 2 years. So thank you guys so much for being a part of that. And if you haven't already hit like and subscribe, do both. Makes you feel good. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.